"That's what you get," I said, and I hung up before he could say another word. 3 weeks earlier, I was lying in a hospital bed with a drainage tube coming out of my abdomen, and my husband was somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean, drinking complimentary wine in business class. Let me back up. My name is Serena Whitfield. I'm 37 years old. I'm a senior internal auditor for a regional bank holding company in Charlotte, North Carolina. I've spent the last 11 years learning how to find the thing people don't want you to find. The number that doesn't quite add up. The transfer that happened at 11:58 p.m. on a Friday. The account that was opened 3 months before the divorce filing. I'm good at my job. I'm thorough. I don't miss things. What I missed was the man sleeping next to me for 9 years. His name is Owen Whitfield, 41, regional sales manager for a medical device company. We met at a charity 5K in 2015. He was charming in the way that some men are charming before you've seen them lose an argument. He had a good laugh and remembered details. Your coffee order, your sister's dog's name, the anniversary of your mother's passing. I thought that kind of attention meant he was present. I didn't yet understand that some people pay close attention because they're always calculating. Owen's parents, his mother Sylvia, 68, retired school administrator, and his father Ronald, 71, retired civil engineer, lived 40 minutes away in Mooresville. They were the kind of couple who referred to themselves in the third person and expected the world to orbit around their preferences. Sylvia once called me on a Tuesday evening to let me know that I had served the wrong kind of rolls at Thanksgiving. Not wrong in the sense that anyone was allergic. Wrong in the sense that she preferred the ones from scratch, and she wanted me to know for next time. I had learned over 9 years to absorb this without visible reaction. I had learned to smile at Sunday dinners and refill Sylvia's wine glass before she asked and agree that yes, Owen had always been the smart one, the responsible one, the one who deserved better than a wife who worked too many hours and didn't yet know how to make a proper pie crust. What I had not learned, apparently, was to watch our joint accounts. In January of this year, I went in for what my surgeon, Dr. Patricia Huang, described as a routine laparoscopic procedure to remove a cyst on my left ovary. Routine is a word doctors use to mean statistically likely to go well. Not that it will definitely go well, and certainly not that it will feel routine to the person lying on the table. The procedure developed complications. What was supposed to be an outpatient surgery turned into a 4-day hospital stay, followed by a week of strict bed rest at home, followed by another 2 weeks of limited activity, daily wound checks, and oral antibiotics that made everything I ate taste like a copper penny. Owen came to the hospital the first day. He sat in the chair next to my bed, scrolled through his phone, told me the room was cold, and left after 2 hours to take a call he said he couldn't miss. He came back that evening with a fast food bag for himself and a single-serve cup of applesauce for me, which he set on the tray table, and then immediately started talking about the annual sales conference he had come up in April. I told him I was tired. He turned off the light and left. My sister Renata showed up the next morning. Renata is 34, a middle school art teacher, and she has exactly 0 patience for nonsense, but an apparently bottomless reserve of patience for people she loves. She brought a tote bag with my favorite lip balm, a cashmere blanket from home, 3 library books she'd chosen based on a 10-second survey of my recent Goodreads activity, and a thermos of the chicken broth I've liked since we were kids. She stayed for 6 hours. She held my hand when the nurse changed the dressing, and it hurt more than I expected. She didn't once look at her phone. Owen visited twice more during the hospital stay. Both times were brief. Both times he mentioned the April conference. The conference was a company-organized event, but the week before it, Owen had told me that his parents wanted to tag along and extend the trip into a family vacation. The conference was in Scottsdale, Arizona. Sylvia had apparently decided that Scottsdale in April was an experience she was owed. And so the plan was that she and Ronald would fly out, attend the conference dinner as guests, and then the three of them would spend an additional 5 days at a resort in Sedona. Owen presented this to me as a logistics update, not a conversation. When I reminded him that I would still be in my recovery window during that time, that my follow-up appointment was April 9th and the trip was April 4th through the 14th, he nodded slowly, the way he nodded when he was waiting for me to stop talking. "You'll be fine by then," he said. "The doctor said limited activity, not no activity. Renata can check on you." I looked at him for a long moment. "You want to spend 10 days at a resort in Sedona," I said, "while I'm recovering from surgery. It's not just a resort, it's a work trip." "For 3 days, Serena." He said my name the way you say a word you've had to repeat too many times. "My parents have been planning this for months. I can't cancel on them." I didn't say anything else that night. That was the thing Owen had never understood about me. My silence was not agreement. My silence was me making a decision about what happened next. I let him go. I helped him pack, actually, because by that point I had already started thinking the way I think when I'm conducting an audit. Calm, sequential. Don't let them know you've found the discrepancy. 2 days after Owen flew to Arizona, I was lying in bed with my laptop, doing the very exciting work of watching streaming television and waiting for my pain medication to kick in. I opened our bank's portal to check that a reimbursement from my health insurance had posted. It had. I was about to close the tab when something made me scroll down. I don't know what made me scroll. Maybe 9 years of small things that I'd dismissed. Maybe the particular way Owen had said, "You'll be fine." Maybe just the auditor in me, the part that never fully switches off, the part that knows that the most important number is always the one just outside my frame. I scrolled to our joint savings account. The balance was $4,847. It should have been just over $61,000. I sat very still for a moment. Then I pulled up the detailed transaction history. Over the course of 11 weeks, beginning in late January, 3 days after my surgery, a total of $56,240 had been transferred out of our joint savings in increments. 8 transfers. The amounts varied: $4,500 here, $9,800 there, $12,000 once, which was the one that made my chest go tight. Each transfer listed the destination as an external account. The account number was masked, as they always are in the consumer portal. But I knew things about the consumer portal that most consumers don't. I closed the laptop. I lay back against the pillows for approximately 90 seconds. Then I called my colleague Jerome, 43, a senior fraud analyst at the same institution where I work. We have a professional relationship and a friendship built on 8 years of mutual respect and the shared understanding that financial crime is usually less sophisticated than people assume, and almost always leaves a trail. Jerome did not ask me why I was calling on a Thursday evening from what was supposed to be my medical leave. Jerome asked me what I needed. I walked him through what I was looking at. He listened without interrupting. "External account number," he said when I finished. "Can you screenshot the transfer confirmations? All 8. I had already done that before I called him. "Send them to my personal email," he said. "Give me until morning." Jerome called me at 7:42 the next morning. The external account was a personal checking account opened 14 months ago at a different regional bank. It was in Owen's name only. 14 months ago. 7 months before my surgery. 4 months before Owen told me his parents wanted to come to Scottsdale. "There's something else," Jerome said, and his voice had the particular flatness that people get when they don't want to be the one saying the next thing. "The account has a second authorized user." He gave me a name I recognized, Kristen Pauley, 29 years old, Owen's administrative assistant at his company's Charlotte office. I thanked Jerome. I told him I'd be in touch. I hung up. I did not cry. I want to be clear about that, not because I think there's anything wrong with crying, but because I want you to understand the specific nature of what I felt in that moment, which was not grief. It was clarity. It was the sensation of a very large, very complicated puzzle suddenly resolving into a shape you can hold in both hands and examine from every angle. I knew exactly what I was looking at. I had seen it before, in other people's financials, in other people's marriages, unraveling on spreadsheets while I sat across a conference table and asked neutral questions. A man systematically liquidating shared assets in anticipation of a departure he hadn't announced yet. A private account. A secondary authorized user who was not his wife might. This was not a mystery, this was a timeline. I called Renata. She didn't say anything for a moment when I told her. Then she said, very quietly, "Tell me what you need. I need you to not say anything to anyone yet," I said. "And I need the name of the best divorce attorney in Charlotte." Renata's friend from her yoga class had used an attorney named Catherine Solis. Late 40s, former state prosecutor, described by her former clients as the kind of woman who walks into a room and everyone already knows she's won. I called Catherine's office that same morning and was told there was a 6-week waitlist for new clients. I explained my situation briefly and professionally. I was called back 40 minutes later with an appointment for the following Monday. The meeting with Catherine lasted 2 hours. I brought printed screenshots of all 8 transfers, the account details Jerome had sourced, 3 years of joint tax returns, a summary of our shared assets, including the house, 2 vehicles, my retirement accounts, Owen's 401, as reported on our most recent filing, and a handwritten timeline I'd prepared of every date, every amount, every account involved. Catherine looked at the timeline for a long time. Then she looked at me. "You do this for work," she said. "I do." "Good," she said. "Then you already know what the next few months are going to look like. I want you to preserve everything. Don't move anything. Don't close anything. Don't warn him. Can you do that?" "Yes," I said. "Then let's talk about what we're filing and when." Owen called me from Sedona 4 days into the trip. It was the 3rd time he'd called. The previous 2 calls had lasted approximately 4 minutes each and had consisted primarily of him telling me about the resort's spa menu and the quality of the hiking trails. He had not once asked how my recovery was going. This 3rd call, he asked if I had checked the savings account recently, because he wanted to move some money around for a home project he'd been thinking about. I told him no, I hadn't checked recently. I told him I'd been resting, like the doctor said. He moved on to describing the dinner view from the resort terrace. I listened. I said, in the right places. I thought about compound interest and asset division, and the fact that the house was in both our names and had appreciated significantly since we bought it in 2018. When Owen came home from Sedona, he came home to a house that looked exactly like the house he'd left. I had made sure of that. The dishes were done. There was food in the refrigerator. I had showered and dressed, and was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee when he came in. He set down his carry-on and said, "You look better." "I feel better," I said. "How was the drive from the airport?" "We had dinner, we watched television." He fell asleep before 10, and I sat in the dark living room for a while, looking at nothing, thinking about the version of my life that had existed before January, and how completely different it had looked from the inside. Catherine filed 2 weeks after Owen's return. He received the divorce petition and the accompanying financial disclosure request on a Tuesday morning at his office. I know this because he called me 11 minutes after the courier delivered it. I was in a meeting and did not answer. He called 3 more times in the next hour. I stepped out after the 3rd. "What is this?" he said, and his voice had the particular quality of someone trying to sound confused when they are actually afraid. "It's a petition for divorce," I said, "and a formal request for financial disclosure. Serena, you need to calm down, whatever you think you found." "Owen," I said, "I'm an internal auditor. I found all of it." The silence on his end lasted long enough that I heard him exhale. "The account with Kristen," I said, "the 14 months of transfers, the $56,240, all of it, I can explain." "Catherine Solis is my attorney," I said. "I'm sure your attorney will be in touch with hers." I had done my research on Catherine's reputation in the Charlotte family law community. Owen was going to need someone very good, and he was going to need them quickly, and he was going to need a lot of money he no longer had easy access to, because Catherine had already moved to freeze our remaining joint assets pending disclosure. He tried to call back twice that afternoon. He texted 4 times. The texts escalated in tone from "we need to talk" to "you're overreacting" to "this isn't what you think" to finally, "I'm coming home so we can discuss this like adults." I was not there when he arrived. I was at Renata's. Sylvia called me the following morning. She opened with, "I don't know what you think you're doing," which I found honestly somewhat impressive as an opening line. I let her finish. She talked for 6 minutes. She used the words family and marriage and commitment multiple times. She said that Owen had made mistakes. Yes, but that I was throwing away 9 years over nothing. Over nothing, I repeated. Men make mistakes, Serena. $56,000, I said. 14 months, and her name is Kristen. Sylvia was quiet. "I hope you enjoyed Sedona," I said, and I ended the call. The divorce proceedings moved the way legal proceedings move, when one party has thorough documentation and an excellent attorney, and the other party has neither. Owen retained a lawyer, a decent one, but not Catherine, and spent the first 6 weeks attempting to characterize the transfers as household planning funds that he had moved for legitimate purposes. Catherine's response to this characterization was approximately 400 pages of transaction records, account opening documents, and electronic communications that Jerome, through proper legal channels and a formal subpoena, had helped make available. Kristen Pauley was not named as a party in the divorce because she wasn't legally required to be. But her name appeared often enough in the documentation that Owen's attorney eventually stopped pretending the secondary account user was incidental. The house sold in late summer. Given the appreciation since 2018, even after splitting the equity, I walked away with enough to put a substantial down payment on a smaller house 20 minutes from Renata's. My retirement accounts were mine. Owen's 401k was divided according to the formula his own financial disclosures had established, which, as Catherine pointed out, was notably smaller than it should have been given his income over the past several years. A discrepancy that suggested the unauthorized transfers had been happening in some form longer than 14 months, and which was now a matter for a forensic accountant and, potentially, additional legal action. The divorce was finalized on a gray Wednesday morning in October. I sat across a conference table in Catherine's office and signed my name on a stack of documents. And when I walked out into the parking lot, the air smelled like rain and cut grass, and something I couldn't quite name, but that felt, unexpectedly, like relief. Renata was waiting in the parking lot. She had brought coffee, the good kind, from the place near her school, and she handed me a cup without saying anything, and we stood there for a moment just drinking it. "So," she said finally. "So," I said, "what do you want to do?" I thought about it. I thought about the house I'd put an offer on, the one with the back porch, and the 2 old oak trees, and the kitchen that faced east, so the morning light came in sideways across the counter. I thought about the savings account that was mine now, only mine, in my name at a bank where I happened to know, personally, 3 members of the fraud prevention team. I thought about the version of my life waiting on the other side of this parking lot. "I want to go look at paint samples," I said, "for the kitchen." Renata laughed. It was real and loud, and it bounced off the parking garage behind us. "Then that's what we're doing," she said. Owen called once more, about 2 weeks after the finalization. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was on my back porch with a cup of tea, watching the oaks move in the wind. I looked at his name on my screen for a moment, I answered. He stopped. Started again. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't say anything. "I know that doesn't fix anything," he said. "I know it's too late, I just wanted to say it." There was a long quiet between us. Not the silence I used to keep when I was deciding what to do. A different kind. The kind that comes after everything important has already been decided. "I hope things go better for you, Owen," I said. And I meant it, because carrying around contempt for someone who is no longer in your life is exhausting work. and I had spent the last 9 months with a better use for my energy. I ended the call. I set the phone face down on the arm of the porch chair. The oaks moved. The afternoon light came down through the leaves in pieces. That was the price he paid. And I was done keeping the account.